morning. I'm Dr. Susan Nordwall. I'm from Health Services at Millersville University. I also have Mrs. Joanna Casio here with me this morning. She's our nurse supervisor. She's very good with talking with parents and students, so she's here with some things this morning. You all should have received in your bag a brochure from Health Services. If you want to turn it out while I'm talking, in case you have any questions, that would be great. And we're going to do a little memory game this morning, and I just have 3 words I want you to remember. And one is care, second one is paperwork, third one is shot. Okay, can you say them back with me? Care, paperwork, shot. Because I'm going to ask at the end of my presentation this morning. Basically, as they mentioned, we're here all together with counseling and the police, and our main concern is keeping your student healthy and happy and safe on campus. Excuse me one second here. And I don't usually like to talk about money first, but that's the first slide that came up. Whether you realize it or not, your student has free visits to health services and counseling. It's covered for their student fee. So if they take advantage of that, if you think a regular doctor's office visit and what that would cost without insurance, it's really a value for them to come to health services. We work closely with the family doctor, and you'll see with my last slide what the paperwork part of it is. But it covers office visits for illness and injury. We do have a lot of over-the-counter medications available for students at no cost. We started something last summer that's fun. It's part of the C. It's a self-care cart, and they can come into health services, and we have a cart with drawers, and they can fill out a form related to what their problem is. If they have a minor cold, or they have a cut, or they have another issue, the drawers contain applicable things. For example, if you come in with a minor cut or scrape or problem, you can help yourself to some Band-Aids and some triple antibiotic ointment. Or if it's a minor sore throat, there's throat lozenge packages in there for them. So that's really cut down. What we try to do is see students that are sicker, and part of being a college student is learning how to take care of yourself, how to make appointments, how to keep the appointments on time, to be part of your own self-care. And you would be amazed, maybe not, but a lot of students have never gone to a doctor by themselves. They've always had mom or dad go with them. So but we're very happy to talk with parents, but a lot of times, especially the freshmen, I walk in the room and they're already dialing mom on the phone. It's usually mom. And they'll want me to talk to mom before I even know what their problem is. So I always tell them, okay, let's just put the phone away for a minute. Let me talk with you. The nurses are great at getting their problems and their history too. And then I'll examine them, talk about what we're going to do, and ask any questions. And usually by that time, they'll just say, oh, I'll just call mom on the way to class or something. So encourage them if they have a problem. And Mrs. Ocasio has a number of things. She has Band-Aids that have our number on them. You can always go online with the website if you lose your brochure, just to let them know where they can go. We also do minor diagnostic testing at health services. For labs, we can do rapid streps, rapid mono, rapid flu tests, rapid urines, pregnancy tests, although parents don't always like to hear that part of it. We do STD testing. There's some minimal charges for those. We also do physical examinations. We do all the sports physicals for the athletic teams here. We also take care of injured players. We work with athletic trainers for that. We can do well woman physicals, contraception counseling, and we have all kinds of medicine here. Our most expensive is $20 for an asthma inhaler. I think our least expensive medicine we dispense is $5 or $6. So how many of you have insurance on your students, health insurance? Okay, so quite a few parents. You probably are aware that in Pennsylvania you can have insurance on your student until they're 26 years old now, and we're all waiting to see what the Affordable Care Act brings in January of 14. But if you don't have insurance, you may want to look into a consolidated health plan. It's not part of the university per se, it's an individual college insurance plan, but they have very good lower cost, at least minimal coverage on students that would cover prescription medications with some co-pays. It would cover visits to specialists with a small copay. It covers x-ray and labs. So you might want to look into that, because the last thing you want is your student to have to leave college for a catastrophic medical bills that they have to go out and work to do that. So we have brochures about that also. So I think that pretty well covers the money, except we do accept cash, works well for us, checks. Marauder Gold works well for us too. This is just a little bit of the C part of things about the care. And number one, we truly do care for your students. Mrs. Ocasio and her staff, she has 6 professional RNs, and they've all had college health experience. A lot of them had ER experience or family practice experience as well. So we have our RN staff. We also have 2 nurse practitioners. We have myself as the medical director. We have 2 front desk people that are very helpful. And they're the ones that usually answer questions if you have questions about the paperwork with things. But you can see on the left side with the health maintenance, we do blood pressure checks. We often find, especially among the football players, a lot of them have slightly elevated blood pressure at the beginning. Maybe it's anxiety, but some of them go on and have pretty steady blood pressure problems. So we do prescribe and treat for that. As I mentioned before, we can do work physicals for students. We do all of the student teaching physicals. If they want to come, they can also go to their family doctor. Some kids that grow up in the cities don't need driver's licenses, but they want to get one when they come here. We do that. Allergy injections. Just remember, if your student gets allergy injections, don't have them tested at the end of the summer and expect us to give the first shot from the first vial. The allergist has to do that. But other than that, we can do allergy shots here. We do a lot of health education. We can do sexually transmitted illness and HIV screenings. And you can see on the right, we do everything from suturing to warts to the labs that we mentioned. We also can do electrocardiograms here. We can do them if we hear a murmur, or sometimes we have students come in with a rapid heartbeat. So that's the C part of things. Now on to the paperwork part of things. And Mrs. Ocasio will hold up, she does have a download. At the bottom, you can see where the forms are available. She has some downloaded copies, a minimal number of those. But don't worry, it's on your health service brochure. If you forget, you can go to the main website for Millersville, click on the H for health services, and it's also on there, and your student can download their forms. We've greatly simplified the forms. It's only 2 pages now. The student fills out the health history part of things. It's just helpful. If they do develop a problem, we can say, oh yeah, you put down here, your mom suffers from depression, or your grandma had diabetes, or to know just a little bit about the health history. And then on the second page, it has information that needs to be filled out about their vaccination history. That's especially important. If your student hasn't had their meningitis vaccine, they cannot move into residential housing, into the dorms at the beginning of the school year. So make sure they get their meningitis vaccine. You can sign a waiver if you have religious or, I think of the other word, religious or other moral problems about getting vaccinations, but we don't run into that very often. And then it has a small part of a physical for their family practice doctor or nurse practitioner or PA to fill out too. And a lot of times I think people think the paperwork is just an unnecessary hassle, but it's really not. It's even mentioned in the admissions letter. We've had a number of emergencies where students come in, we've never taken care of them before, and we already have an electronic medical record on them. And if we know what their allergies are, for example, a severe nut allergy, we can just start the protocol, bam, 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 and it can be life-saving for your student. Or they're a severe asthmatic, or maybe they have something else going on that we need to be aware of, and we're more than happy to work with them and work with you about any problems. But that's one reason for the paperwork. Another reason would be if we have an epidemic of something on campus and they haven't had their vaccine, they may be asked to go home if they're not properly vaccinated, because number one, we don't want them to get sick or spread illness to others. And we have, since I've been in Lancaster County for 4 years, we've had a polio epidemic, we've had a whooping cough epidemic, so it is important that they become vaccinated. There's a little TB screening part of the paperwork too, and that's important because TB is one of the more prevalent illnesses in the world today, and we do get international students in, and our students go to other countries, so that's why that's so important. I just want to let you know too, if you don't get their forms in for them, although I prefer your student get their forms in for themselves, we will track them down. You're probably going to get a postcard. Look for it. It's gold. They're being mailed out on Monday. If you get one, your student has not yet turned in their necessary paperwork. If they don't turn it in after the postcard, in August you will get a robocall from Millersville saying they still haven't turned in their paperwork. If they don't get it turned in, by the time registration starts for their spring semester, they will not be allowed to register. So just really encourage them. If they tell you, oh, they never knew about it, no, they're usually notified 6 times before they get placed on hold for registration. So just make them aware of that. I just wanted to let you know quickly too, we do have a number of fun educational things. If your son or daughter tells you that they're going to Breastival this fall, you don't need to worry. Even Chief Anders would probably let his daughters go to it. It's a fun educational event. We have a donor that endowed some money. We have a breast cancer awareness program here on campus, and it's just a fun educational festival. There's food, there's music, there's different tables, everything from the American Cancer Society to the walking store to a photo booth. We did a study that over 85% of our students are affected in some way by breast cancer. So it's part of an educational thing, and even young men or older men can get breast cancer. Our t-shirts that are free this year, if the student goes to a certain number of tables, they're going to get a free shirt. No phone zone. What does that mean? Encourage your daughters and also your sons for women not to put their cell phone in their bras, because there may be an association. There's a Dr. West in California studying that. The local high school right by Millersville, a young woman had to have a mastectomy and radiation and chemo treatment for having a breast cancer. And interestingly, the cancer had formed right at the location she had stored her cell phone for many years. So just talk to them about that. Tell your sons not to put their cell phone right in their pocket. I'm not saying that they've studied this enough yet, but I think it's a good habit to be aware of. If you read the microscopic print on your cell phone, you will see that it is a radiation-emitting device. So if they tell you about that too, don't think they're far out there. That is something that's being looked into. That's basically what I have to tell you here, and the police are going to be up next. Now, what are the 3 words?
Care, pain,
Oh, I forgot the shot part. Excuse me. One quick second. Excuse me. I did better with my first lecture. The shot part is we give free flu shots. Last year was the first year we tried that. Free works for most students. They were happy to get them. I don't mind if they get them at home with their family doctor over their fall break either, but we really try to cut down on having to close the campus or students missing class. So 3 years ago, we had just shots at cost. Then we tried buy one, get one if they brought a buddy along. And last year it was free. So strongly encourage them to get their flu shots this fall too. So.
Such a nice thing. I mean, what if they don't want to get their flu shots?
Well, if you have reasons that you don't want them to get their flu shot, yeah. Well, I know there are people concerned. It is a killed virus. Some people think that you get a mild case of the flu from that. That hasn't been proven. You know, I know there are some complications, but we do give them informed consent information before they get that. Luckily, in my 4 years here, I've not seen anybody get a bad complication from flu shots. But I think your problems with getting the flu itself, when H1N1 was out, there were a number of deaths among young people too for it. So you kind of have to balance that. I get the flu shot. All of our staff at Health Services does. I give them to my own 2 daughters. I feel like it's the right thing to do, but we respect people's beliefs as well. So, okay, are we supposed to hold questions till the end? Or okay, thank you very much for your kind attention. And here's Chief Anders and Deputy Chief.
I'm working on
Okay.
the machine.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes I have a hard time standing behind stuff, so I move a little bit as I talk. So Howie Bauman, I'm Pete Anders. I'm the chief at Millersville University. Howie, we're both relatively newbies at Millersville. I've been here 2.5 years. Howie is coming on his year anniversary. Howie just retired from Millersville Borough Police, where he was the #2 position there. Just an incredible job. We're fortunate to have him. I retired from Lancaster City Police after 21 years, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And for me, it was really neat to come to Millersville because I'm an alumni. And so I'll ask you here, are there any state system grads, Bloomsburg, Westchester, any of the 14 schools? Put your hands up. All right, that's all. Any Millersville? Nice, all right. So, you know, it really is neat. I live locally. I have 3 daughters. As I said earlier, sometimes I think God has a sense of humor. Might be one of the questions I'm going to ask, like, what's up with that? But they are 13, 14. My oldest just turned 16. They are next door at Penn Manor. Yeah, so it's interesting at home at times. So that's why I talk a lot at work. So seriously,
I had two that went through Millersville, so I sat in your seats and know a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so it is, when I talk about policing, and about policing on a campus, I really do look at it as well as in Lancaster. I have family that lives in Lancaster City, and, so I'd like to believe that, we are ingrained in the community, and we're here for service, and that's our primary goal is to be service. One of the things I didn't say at the earlier group was, it was pretty neat to, at graduation, as students were coming in to get a couple high fives, and some of it was definitely like, hey, I'm out of here, but, that's really, for me, that's a highlight to see students recognizing officers as they're going through and saying, hey, thanks. So, about our department, this is our second shift right here. Sergeant Flood is in charge of that shift. He's all the way on the left. One of the things that I changed, and you'll see we still have some of the cars that are not black and gold, but as an alumni I said, hey, we're in a unique position to be able to have our cars and change our emblems to our school's colors. So we haven't changed the uniforms. If I get an alumni to make a nice donation, maybe we can do that. But otherwise, it's a cost containment factor. So we are a full-service police department. We have full arrest powers. We're a state agency because of Millersville University being one of the 14 state schools. So we go through, every officer has to have the same accreditation, the Act 120 training that they would get for all the municipal departments in Pennsylvania. So we're sworn, we do carry firearms, we do regular drills, most of which are not really observed by anybody, just simple walkthroughs. We do walkthroughs of buildings. In the event that we would have the most serious incident, an active shooter or an incident similar to that, or somebody who stumbles on campus that way. We also do it off campus. So our officers pair with Millersville Borough officers and also with Manor Township. We check some of their largest buildings just so we have that familiarity because we respond to incidents off campus. We enforce all laws. We enforce traffic laws. Probably our biggest issue that we have sometimes is speeding as you come down George Street. We are a pedestrian-friendly area, and so we try to keep traffic to going, moderate or reasonable speeds. I think last year we had 4 students that were struck by vehicles, so it does happen, and we are in a borough, so I'd say two of those accidents were student fault, the pedestrian's fault, just simply getting in a position where, whether they had earplugs in or not, just getting very, very comfortable and stepping out. Unfortunately, none of the injuries were very serious. Matter of fact, I think the most serious was a wrestler who ended up wrestling later that season. I can say this as a wrestler. I thought it was sort of a smile that his dad told him at the hospital, hey, just think what would happen if that was actually a big car. The little car did a pretty good job on it, so the car won. But we do take that seriously. We're actually looking at other ways to try to calm traffic as it comes across campus. We enforce university policies as well. So we have the no alcohol on campus policy. For those that come homecoming, there will be a tent that the university is setting up that will be like, not really a beer garden, I don't know how to describe it, but there are some limited events on campus where there may be alcohol. And we respond, as I said, off campus. We patrol by vehicle, bicycle, and foot, which I'm a big believer in. It's the best way for us to get out and actually meet with our community. So of that group there, I think 3 are bicycle trained, and Sergeant Flood will be going through the bicycle training as well. If you don't mind pushing ahead. Parking, sometimes it's an issue. So it's a smaller picture that my predecessor had, and I sort of liked it, so I left it. Seriously, parking is not that bad at Millersville. It's a frequent question that we get, and it's actually I will get a frustrated call guaranteed every semester, sometimes towards the end of the semester because of parking tickets for students. We do enforce parking. We have to have, and our goal really is to have compliance and order. The big lot right behind this building here is one of our biggest lots for student parking. It's almost entirely student parking. We have 2 parking garages. What does happen is, and I'm guilty of this as well, is, there are times that I'll go somewhere and I'm running late and I just figure, hey, I'm gonna try to create my own spot. So I have gotten parking tickets, not here, but, and I'm very careful here to park in staff parking because I think it sets an example. But I have gotten parking tickets, including in Lancaster, where I was in charge of patrol division, I actually paid them. So, but I want to talk about crime. We have 8,000 students that are between the ages of 17, generally. We do have some students that come from Penn Manor and other high schools from co-op programs that are sometimes that 16 age group that might be taking an advanced class. But generally, our on-campus population can be up to 7,000 to 8,000 students during peak times. And that's really a interesting age group is the way I'll put it, to be between ages 17 or 18 and 20, generally 22, 23. It is incredible to me how well our students are and how well our students do. What will be announced later this week, and it'll probably be in the newspapers, is we were just designated or rated one of the top 25 safest campuses in the nation. So really, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So, but a lot of that credit really goes back to, not just us, but counseling services, health services. We connect into each of those areas, and then our community, our students, and the faculty are themselves, because they really try to set a goal of having civility, of having people, and you can probably see that as you came in today, having people say hello, and try to help each other out. Another question I get all the time, will we tell you if you're, and we usually get it from the students after we sign them for something, are you going to tell our parents? There are some limited, and it's mainly underage drinking, that we will absolutely call parents. And that includes if your child is 20 years old, because that's Pennsylvania law. So same laws that apply to police off campus apply to us on campus. Otherwise, we do not always call. So ironically, if there's a arrest for marijuana, you would not necessarily get a call, but you would probably get a call from Judicial Affairs. And the other thing is, if your student is living on campus, there is a zero tolerance for drugs in the residence hall. So that is like a do not pass go. They will probably be kicked out of the residence hall. So it's something that the university takes very, very seriously, as far as having a safe, drug-free, alcohol-free environment within the residence halls. You can check, and if you need to, and you can't find it, you can email me. You can check on your students and keep track to see if they were cited through the Pennsylvania docket system, which is open to the right to know. And so if you just Google PA docket system, Pennsylvania docket system, you will find one of the top links, and it's a public, and you just navigate your way through that, and then you can do a search, and it's by county, name and county. So you can put Pete Anders, Lancaster County. I searched myself recently, I don't have anything to find. I know that what ends up happening is that everybody goes back and they're searching their neighbor, their boss. But anyway, if you do have that concern, you can check and keep tabs on it with your student. The other thing our promise is if your student, for some reason, needs to go to the hospital, and we do transports at times to the hospital. The most serious criminally related that we can have is an alcohol toxicity. And, that we don't mess around with it. So if we have somebody that we find for a PBT that's more than twice the legal limit, we will generally bring them to the hospital. And a lot of times it'll be by ambulance, which would be a separate charge, because we do not want to have a student death. And we talk very openly to students during orientation and afterwards about the dangers of high level of alcohol. But if we have a student go to a hospital, we will give you a call. We will tell you that your son or daughter is at the hospital and this is what's going on. Okay. I think I covered.
Yeah.
Can you have a vehicle on campus? You can. For freshmen, our general rule, as most campuses, if you check, our general rule is no. However, we do a lottery which will start after students can submit for that. The causes for being able to have as a freshman on campus to have, and I'm not talking about commuters, so if there's any parents of commuting students from like a local area, yes, they can commute and bring their car, they don't have to walk to campus. But if you're living on campus, son or daughter's living on campus, if they're in the military, so some are in the reserve and they have a drill weekend once a month, or if they have a significant medical need, then we will need the medical documentation for that. I know it's hoops to jump through, but we've had in the past somebody try to, one or two students try to manipulate that. Job at home is not a reason for us to consider that. But I will say most students that enter the lottery get through in the lottery. It's usually about the second week of school because we have to wait to determine the amount of commuters that we have that transition as far as upperclassmen. And there is preference for upperclassmen. My sidebar to that is the first 6 weeks are very important for your student to get ingrained into the school and other activities. I really would say, and I will tell my daughters this, whether they come to Millers or somewhere else, don't bring a car your first semester on school. Take the time. You're not going to need a car here. So, and if you get a car and you're the freshman in the dorm, everybody's going to be asking you for a ride, right? I mean, they're going to be asking you for rides everywhere, which then you're going to be spending gas. So it's just, I don't think you really needed to have it here. So I think I went through. And we report all of our crime to the state police and also through the FBI. We do the separate report that we do is called the Clery Report. Our data for all that information is on our website. So I believe in being transparent, and it's actually sort of neat since we were probably in school, our age group, they've actually forced colleges to be more and more transparent. See, you guys haven't, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I go right through it?
Yeah.
All right. I actually joked and I said, I'm going to make Becker really hold it. So, safety escorts. We do safety escorts during the evening hours after dusk. And we've had that periodically where students will use it, and other times we go sort of a long time period where students aren't. I think the lighting on campus is good. We work with facilities to try to find and identify areas during the evening that we can improve it. We have emergency blue phones. I think we're now over 30 emergency blue phones on campus. Those calls and something unique that Millersville does that we really haven't touted, it wasn't even considered for a while we were one of the safest campuses, is we completely switched our emergency dispatching over to Lancaster County 911. So any emergency call that comes in, most other campuses, it'll come into a small dispatch area where there might be one person, and that's what used to happen here, and that one person would say, oh, okay, so there's somebody having a seizure, we'll send the university police, because they couldn't dispatch a fire or ambulance. So all of our emergency calls actually go to County 911. County 911 can cross-dispatch us and also ambulance or fire as needed, which I think is really, really important. It saves time. Last thing I want to worry about is if somebody's having a seizure, even though we're CPR medically first aid trained, I want an EMS coming in. MU Alert, threat assessment team. Threat assessment team briefly is we have one of the best that I have seen, and I've actually given advice when I was with Lancaster to large corporations and also K through 12 districts on how to look at and assess if somebody's got a potential harm to themselves or others. And it is a concern. So one of the things that we do is we have a confidential system that students and staff and faculty can call, and we've had referrals for students and staff and faculty as well. And generally what happens is somebody will say, I have a concern because all of a sudden somebody's despondent, they're not quite themselves, they're going through things, or they're making statements that just cause me a little bit of concern. And so we have a cross-section that will weigh in from counseling, academics to see because I may have a piece of information from police, but somebody else may say, and we'll check their class schedule, yeah, they were really doing well, and all of a sudden they're not showing up. So generally what we do is we do a welfare check, and it's very brief. We'll meet with the students and say, or staff and faculty and say, hey, there's been some concern. We sit down for a place where we can talk. And that's been extremely well received. Some of the concern when we started to do that was that, we would actually get pushback. Every student it's usually me and the director of housing, Tom Richardson, who's a really easygoing guy. And every time I've actually had students thanking me and students sharing with their parents, when the students, also staff and faculty. And sometimes it's just that little bit of somebody checking and saying, hey, we have these resources and everybody has some of these same issues. So, MU Alert, if you go on the main university site, on the bottom right you will find safety and security. You can sign up for MU Alert. It's free, which is the nicest thing. Your students should sign up for it, encourage them, because it will tell them If there's a campus emergency, it sends it to them immediately by text and also by email. The other thing that's neat with it is it will, what else? It'll tell them if there's cancellations with weather. And timely warning notices are what we will put on our main buildings of campus. If there's a crime that has occurred, either on campus or slightly off campus, and I mentioned we had a series of burglaries last year. Howie was kind enough to solve them for the borough before he came over to us. We put out warnings on the campus buildings, basically saying there was a burglary that occurred in your area, and we believe that could occur again. So take the precautions to keep your doors locked even when you're home. So that's one last thing I know will stop. But the RAD program, really neat program. It's for our female students. Gives them basically like defensive driving. Gives them what to do if they're in a situation where they feel that they may be raped or sexually assaulted. And I'm going to do one more because I didn't mention this. We are one of the first schools in Pennsylvania to do an active shooter, what you should do. And if you go on our website, you can get a really good precursor of it. Or if you just Google Run, Hide, Fight, which is Department of Homeland Security, made a video. It really is talking about changing the culture of, instead of students, whether it's K through 12 or in college, sitting in a corner if they hear a shooting going on, or if they're in a mall or movie theater or wherever it may be, following our instincts. And our instincts are, to actually try to flee that if we can. So I'm one of the trainers for that. We also have another trainer. Thank you.
Okay, I can be fast, so I'll go through relatively quickly, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes for questions at the end. I am Dr. Kendra Saunders. I work in the Counseling Center here at Millersville University. I'm going to talk very briefly about the transition you and your son or daughter might go through as they leave for college, and also talk about the services of the Counseling Center. First, we've talked to enough parents to know that you guys are probably experiencing a wide range of feelings, maybe some excitement for the new venture your son or daughter is about to embark on, excitement maybe to have a little more space in the house or a little less carpooling. But you're also worried about how they'll do, whether they'll be able to function well or well enough without you. And you also might be a little sad anticipating having one less person you love in the house. Even though they might not express it, they're probably feeling similar feelings. That they are also excited, but nervous, and a little sad. And every situation is going to be a little bit different. You may have already sent a child to college. Don't assume that the next son or daughter is going to have the same experience. It varies a lot. Sometimes it varies based on the order. If they're the first to leave the house, they might feel a little more homesick because they feel like they're missing more back at home. If they come from a single parent household and they're the oldest, they might worry more about how mom or dad will run the house without them. It's commonly talked about how parents worry about their son or daughter, but they actually worry about you guys too and how you'll do without them. So keep that in mind. And as much as you can talk to them about that openly over the summer, I think that's helpful to kind of normalize that all of you will be feeling those different things probably at different times. Also keep in mind that the transition to childhood to adulthood is never perfectly smooth. You might have your own memories of some bumps in the road you experienced in growing up. And so that will reveal itself in some way as they transition to becoming adults. There might have been times, perhaps graduation, that they looked really mature and you were so proud of them for graduating from high school, and other times that they forgotten something really important, or you saw an important Millersville University document crumpled up on the floor and kind of wondered how they'll exist without you. That will continue to happen on and off throughout the years they're in college. But you want to keep in mind the long game, that Are they moving in the right direction, becoming more self-sufficient, more independent? Are they learning from their mistakes? Are they continuing to improve? Knowing that, especially that first semester, there'll be some growth edges. And they're going to be challenged in college. They're going to be challenged academically. They're going to be challenged socially. There's not going to be someone watching over them in the same way as maybe at home. And so there will be a few stumbles, but as long as they learn from those, I think that is the big picture. I think it's important too to just talk to them a little bit about your expectations before they leave for college. Try to see if you're close to the same page as far as expectations academically, how much money they need while they're here, whether they're expected to get a job while they're on campus or not. Another big one, especially when they first come to college, is how much you'll communicate with them. Sometimes parents want to communicate a lot more than students or vice versa, and that can create some confusion as well. I think it's good, at least for the first couple of weeks, to plan as far as what time of day you'll touch base and what method, whether it's phone or text or whatever, to make sure that there's some more regular communication right at the beginning. Ask them a lot of questions, not just how they're doing academically, but how are they sleeping, how are they feeling, how are they getting along with roommates, are they starting to feel connected to people on campus or not, and just spend a lot of time listening and realize it's normal. There's probably going to be at some point you get some panicked phone call at night about how upset they are that because of a romantic relationship or because of a roommate problem, and you'll stay up all night trying to figure it out for them, and by the time you call, they'll be on to the next thing and things are totally over. So that happens as well. Also, a couple things once they come to college to keep in mind is it's really important for them the first month to stay on campus as much as possible, because when they first arrive here, that's really when a lot of those connections begin to be formed with other friends or people who turn out to be friends. That's when new students are most open to meeting new people. And if they are gone every weekend, they're just not going to develop those same relationships as students who stay on campus. Now, there's that one long 3-day weekend. A lot of students go home for that, and I think that's probably okay. But otherwise, that first month, I really encourage them to stay on campus, even if they're feeling a little homesick or pulling at your heartstrings. If you can compromise, they maybe coming to campus and meeting them for lunch on a Saturday or something like that. But really try to encourage them to stay here that first month. Also encourage them to get involved on campus. Students who are involved in at least one organization tend to do better academically because, again, they make connections and want to do well academically so they can stay here. We have everything, including so many clubs, including a juggling club, like everything you can think of. So if your son or daughter has some hobby, there'll be a way for them to connect with other people with those same interests. One final thing to keep in mind is to take some time for yourself now. Give yourselves a pat on the back. It's not easy to get a son or daughter to college. And you might have a little more time or a little more space. You might want to think back, way back when before you had children, about what you did with your time, what your hobbies and interests were, and take some time to reconnect with those interests or with your spouse. I think students feel better knowing that their parents are doing okay too, that they're not just staying at home and missing them, and that their lives revolve around them, that they like to know that they're kind of living their own lives and finding their own way as well. So I encourage you to reconnect with those aspects of yourself that maybe you haven't had as much time for lately. Finally, a little information about the Counseling Center. We are located in Lyle Hall, which is, all students should know where that is as soon as they come to campus, because it's got financial aid, a lot of major resources students need. We're on the 3rd floor. We have 5 licensed psychologists. I'm one of them. We have a drug and alcohol counselor. We have a part-time psychiatrist. We have an intern provider. We're pretty well equipped to handle any student mental health issue that may come along. We have full-time, college-age students, students in college. We have a very we're very aware of what this time and their lives is like. And so our expertise, I think, is very helpful. We're very popular on campus. I think the word is out that we can be helpful, and so we're also very busy. We are free and confidential for students, so they don't have to pay anything to meet with us. When I say confidential, that also means with confidential towards parents. A lot of students don't want to come in if they think that their parents are going to find something out. But if they do sign a release, then we can communicate with you, but try to be understanding. If you call asking if they've been in or made their appointment, we can't communicate that unless we have their permission to do so. Generally, we don't go chasing students down that look like they might be upset. Usually, therapy is a lot more effective if they're deciding to come in and meet with us, but there are a few exceptions to that. If a student is hospitalized due to suicidal ideation, they have to meet with us. So we can check on their safety before they're allowed back in the residence halls. If they get off in some type of trouble with drugs and alcohol and they get sent to the judicial affairs, a lot of times they're required to meet with a therapist for treatment as a condition of remaining on campus. And so a lot of times they come to us because, again, we're free and right on campus. But for the most part, we want them to choose to come in, and they do, because it doesn't take long for word to get out that we're helpful for students, and we have a good reputation on campus that keeps us busy. And most students, even if they're reluctant to come in the first time, once they come in, they really enjoy having a place, a neutral place to come and talk about their issues. You know, in the residence halls, if you tell one person one thing, who knows where that information will go, and they really like having a place that they can talk about anything and not having to worry about who finds out. We can deal in any range of issues, dealing from homesickness or boyfriend or girlfriend problems to depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and we're here and available for students if they need any help. Thank you.
Do you identify the attention deficit like that?
Excuse me?
Do you do analysis for attention deficit?
That's actually through learning services to get formal testing for ADHD. We do see students for therapy for ADHD, for kind of learning tips and so forth, if they're seeking that, but the actual accommodations and the testing is done through learning services. I think at this point, we're going to have everyone up for.
I was going to say, we have
time.
about 2 minutes, so we're going to take maybe 1 or 2 questions. I was going to say from anyone, how many of you guys are coming to lunch?
We'll be at lunch.
I'll be at lunch.
If you have a police question, you can absolutely bother me while we tell. Which is not a bother, so I don't mean it that way. Yeah.
Maybe if you have any questions for health services, we'll take 1 or 2 of them now since they are not coming to lunch.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Are all the health services available to full-time commuting students also?
Yes, any registered student, including part-time students, have to pay a portion of the health services or the activities fee for that, and grad students. We find not as many grad students take advantage of this, maybe because they already have a family doctor, they're married with kids, that type of thing, but yes, anyone can come. Yes.
Do we get insurance for our kids if they don't have private insurance in the school? Is there anything that's part of the tuition that?
It's not hard waivered in yet, but we really strongly suggest you look into insurance for your child, at least minimal insurance, and under the Affordable Care Act, by January of 14, they'll be required to have insurance. We offer one called Consolidated Health Plan. It's not through Millersville, but it's a good plan that I've looked through and has good benefits for a reasonable price, so I would strongly look into that.
Now, do they ever have to use their private insurance?
The only time they have to use their private insurance is we're happy to write scripts. We have a number of generic meds and free medicines available, but if they have a copay that they want to go to one of the local pharmacies, they can certainly do that. For lab work, and we use 3 different reference labs. If they don't have insurance, we try to pick the least expensive lab for their blood work, or if they need to see a specialist or need any kind of x-ray studies or that type of thing, or if they go to the ER if it's the middle of the night. But I'd strongly encourage it because you don't want them to have to drop out of school for a catastrophic medical bill. And I know insurance is expensive these days. We're all waiting to see what happens with the Affordable Care Act, but we're all in this together, so. Okay, yes.
How long before the school year starts can you go for the physical? So if I go now, would it be
You
okay?
can go now. I would strongly encourage you to go now and get your paperwork in. And then it doesn't slow you down. If you come into health services without your paperwork, usually you'll have to fill out your health history first before we can see you. And don't get me wrong, we won't turn down any students, but it just really helps if you have that done already. And usually the front desk will extract a promise that students are gonna get that in as soon as possible. Like I said, it can slow you down for your other things, yes.
Can you have someone on duty 24/7?
We're no longer open 24/7, but I think we have very reasonable office hours. We're open from 8 in the morning until 6 during the regular school year. In the summer, we're open from 8 to 4:30. We do close at 4 on Fridays. But
We-
students usually play